I am a professional chocobo breeder.
What is Final Fantasy VII? That's an enormous question.
Final Fantasy VII is a beloved RPG that was released by Square Enix back in 1997.
An epic adventure to save the planet.
It was a cultural landmark.
It was the first game that really opened my eyes to the role-playing genre.
It's a video game that changed the life of many, many, many people.
I liked JRPGs before Final Fantasy VII, but then after that, it was like JRPGs were the thing.
It was the first which had these like 3D little chunky characters, and it had cutscenes, which at the time were the most incredible graphics you'd ever seen.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I was watching it first.
This was like, I'm looking at the future.
My first memory of Final Fantasy VII was going over to my cousin's house and seeing him fight Ultimate Weapon and chasing him around the sky. And then he bumped into Ultimate Weapon, which started like the random battle, the turn-based battle. And I'd never seen a turn-based battle before. And my first reaction was, this is really, really stupid.
This was way before I was ever into RPGs or enjoyed JRPGs or anything. I thought they were for nerds.
But I remember being really confused. You're taking turns smacking each other.
They were just standing there. I didn't as a child, I didn't understand what I was looking at.
Wait a minute, I'm just like waiting for the guy to shoot me.
Realistically, as a kid, I was kind of like, I wish I could just run up and hit them.
I was playing Killer Instinct and Street Fighter and all these other fighting games. However, as soon as I saw like a summon, I was like, this looks really crazy. This looks a lot different than JRPGs that I'm used to, which are usually like Lord of the Rings, D&D-esque knights and battlefields and all that kind of stuff.
And here we are in this modern setting, with swords, but also guns.
It looked different from other Final Fantasy games that I had played, and I was immediately drawn in.
This was different. It was cyberpunk. It had a different visual appeal than most of those other games. I'm like, this game's really. I need to get a copy of this game. The opening cutscene of Final Fantasy VII is probably one of the best intros ever. I couldn't believe that they would hold on this shot of stars for so long, that they would hang on these shots and have this music and establish this atmosphere.
And hearing the music and seeing the lighting and Aerith's face in the cutscene in the opening cutscene with the Mako going everywhere.
It starts with the kind of Midgar reveal, and it's a very somber, almost kind of like contemplative moment.
It establishes this whole thing where you're in this gigantic city, but you're like one small part of it, and Shinra feels so massive and imposing.
It lowers down, you see the scums of Midgar, you see Aerith, and then all of a sudden it's like da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
It just grabbed me by the collar and just yanked me through that screen.
I remember feeling so pumped when I saw Cloud just flip off that train.
It just gets you pumped. Like, it's such a good opening cutscene.
Buckle me in. Like, I do this to say, like, I'm getting on the roller coaster, bring down the roller coaster, buckle me in, let's go.
And you realize that, oh, we're getting off to a running start with this game.
Midgar kind of felt like the end of the game almost to me at that age.
You start off in an enclosed location, like Final Fantasy. Every Final Fantasy does this. Eventually, you're let out into this wide world that you can experience.
When I first left Midgar, I thought the game was over.
You kind of see, oh, there's all these sectors. You're seeing all this poverty. You're seeing all these different areas. That means the whole game is going to take place in Midgar.
That in itself felt like a massive world.
And that took all this time, and now there's this massive world, and what does it have for me ready to go?
It felt like walking outside after being cooped up for weeks or something like that.
Oh, we're outside of Midgar, and this is only disc 1.
I felt like I was on a road trip with my buddies.
I'll never forget it. That's like a mind-blowing moment that should be on like the back of the box, but the fact that it wasn't spoiled for me is insanely cool. So Sephiroth killing Aerith is easily one of the most impactful moments in like video game history.
If you look at that cutscene of Aerith dying, the direction of that cutscene is still so beautiful and so masterful, and it's so cruel.
The way that it's done by the devs so geniusly, like Sephiroth like coming down with the big sword, it is horrific.
It's how she died that I think is what made me feel the most sad, because it's almost like it was too violent.
It's the kind of game where characters will die and then, there's just use a Phoenix down. Like, they don't actually die, but she for real just sunk to the bottom, died, dead, gone, goodbye, 6 feet under. And I'm pretty sure I cried as a kid. I was so heartbroken. I was so sad.
I was like, she's not gonna die. They're not gonna kill her.
The rest of the game is gonna be about getting her back. I get it. Or we're gonna have to get her back in some way. And you just can't. You just have to live with that.
This message about life and death and the acceptance of the fact that we will lose important people.
There's really no one else like Aerith. Her limit breaks, for example, that heal everyone. You can't really feel that slot with her. Because of that, there's no replacing her. And I feel like that emulates the sensation that you get when you actually lose somebody.
You had this beam of light in front of you the whole game, and then with one motion, she's gone.
Most people are, if you're a normal human being, you're devastated by that moment, right? Like a character has been killed.
Yeah. I just didn't care very much.
I don't think there was any real great association emotionally for me. If anything, I think the reason that is the case is because I didn't like using her as a character. From a gameplay perspective, I was kind of like, oh, well, it doesn't really affect me that much.
Losing Aerith in that moment, so like as a teenage boy, was not as impactful because I didn't go on a date with her.
Look, she was one of my party members, so I cared because she was one of my party members, but like, I kind of knew it was gonna happen, and it wasn't Tifa.
The date I ended up, for some reason, I think going on with Tifa. So I didn't get like a lot of that connection, which normally happens on a lot of people's first playthrough.
If it was Tifa, I would have been pissed. I would have stopped playing the game, but it wasn't. So you know what? It was all good.
I don't know if that makes me a bad person, but
maybe you should rethink some of your stances.
Yes!
I did everything at Gold Saucer.
That area really wins you over with how quirky and weird it is. It had a vibe, it had a cool vibe.
Some of my favorite backgrounds in that game are Gold Saucer. I love the Haunted Mansion. Why it's so weird and spooky.
I tried to do every single thing possible. I was that weird guy that figured out that Cloud could go on dates with everyone, including Barret.
Definitely as a teenage boy. Caused a lot of schoolyard conversations of like, who'd you go on a date with? I went on a date with Barret. I don't know what's going on. Like,
you go there and it's just like, hey, we're having fun. It's the Gold Saucer.
That theme is forever burned into my head. Actually has like retinal burn, OLED burn into my eyes and my ears and my brain. I can see the music. Forever and ever and ever.
I played many games.
I got really, really good at that little basketball minigame.
The minigame that I was most fixated on was the bike minigame. And I don't even think they had different tracks. In fact, it was just the same track that you do when you leave Midgar.
Hey, I'm gonna play the motorcycle minigame again because it's amazing, and just play it over and over and over again. Go and hang out and play the snowboard minigame, which I think I actually liked a little bit more.
Definitely the snowboarding game.
The snowboarding was my personal fave.
Personally, the roller coaster is one of my personal favorites.
I didn't even know that was there for maybe like until my third or fourth playthrough of it.
Of course, the battle arena.
The battle arena, I think, is actually like kind of a roguelike before roguelikes or roguelite was ever even, a thing.
Man, oh man. Those slot machines will forever be ingrained in my mind. Just the noise they make and the colors. Ugh, it's so good.
FF7 is a unique game because it has a lot of mini games in it.
It inspired me. I used to make video games on RPG Maker when I was in high school, and I would literally make Gold Saucer-esque areas in RPG Maker for my big RPGs that were just mini game zones.
I think I did some of the racing and stuff like that.
When you would do those races, you would see, oh, look at all these cool prizes you can win. Look at all these people you can race against. And you felt good racing them. But there was that one guy who had the black chocobo and he had his hat and he always beat you no matter what. And I knew in my mind's eye that that guy had to go down. I had to figure it out. I know the ins and outs of how to take basic chocobos that have certain elements that can then breed together with a certain nut to then evolve into a green chocobo, a blue chocobo, a red chocobo.
Then you have to, like, if you want a blue versus a green and male versus female, you got to like reload
to get us a black chocobo, eventually to get the golden chocobo.
The chocobo breeding is such a nightmare.
And then finally, when you breed it properly, you're like, I got the gold chocobo. Oh, this is so exciting to be able to explore the game and do everything and then get Knights of the Round. And Knights of the Round, even though it's literally over a minute long.
The first time I used Knights of the Round, I was laughing like a hyena the entire time. It was so funny to sit there.
Back in the day, it was so cool just seeing these like minute-long summons.
At the time, it was like I just wanted to watch it in its majesty every time.
Knights of the Round, when you first see it, is really incredible. But when you have to see it the 20th time and the animation is so long, it does get on your nerves a little bit.
Wow, this is really long.
That was the time you knew, all right, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to get something to eat. I'm going to call a friend because you were plugged in. This was a cutscene that was playing for a long time.
All those old, Final Fantasy summon animations are way too long, and I don't think they made them skippable.
And I was the kid that was like, all right, I did it once. If I do W summon, I can do it twice. And then I can make my whole party mimic.
So no matter what, it was Knights of the Round all day. Knights of the Round.
Knights of the Round is one of the sickest summons of all time.
Oh, it's a bunch of dudes hitting them with swords. Okay.
I love fighting the ruby weapon. The ruby weapon is this boss that is so difficult to fight, so difficult to parse down. It's one character versus this gigantic weapon with these tentacle things attacking from behind. And you have to just come up with the most intricate battle chess-like game plan to take down the ruby weapon.
I definitely discovered the weapons. Emerald weapon, the one underwater. I remember first seeing that, and it just comes out. It's just like, nah, I don't know about this. Like turning and running away from it, not letting it get you. Anytime you go down, it could be like right up here, like right next to you.
He is so memorable to me because of how many times I tried to beat him.
One of my personal favorites is the safe boss from the Midgar mansion. The guy with the half face. I think what I love about the safe boss is that you can fight him from very early on in the game, and if you want to fight him super early, he's one of the most difficult fights.
The final battle against Sephiroth.
You see Cloud against Sephiroth, like 1v1.
The cutaways between the two of them.
And it's just like pitch black darkness, you versus him.
It was like nothing I'd ever experienced at that point.
You have to hit this low before, like you hit this low as a player, as Cloud Strife, feeling like all hope is absolutely lost and the evil, if you will, is so insurmountable that there's no possible way that you'll be able to overcome it.
You feel all the emotion and anguish in that limit bar. There's nothing more satisfying than seeing that limit bar just fill up and Cloud just goes Omni Slash.
It's another moment where it's as beautiful as it is like an action-packed moment.
Finally, Cloud gets his revenge.
So then when you finally do, and you avenge Aerith and, hopefully save the planet, It feels really good.
The final moment in that game is something that really sticks with you.
The final fight with Sephiroth in the crater, when the music kicks in, when there's like vocals going on for One Inning Angel, insane.
A friend of mine was like, do you want to go to the Final Fantasy remake concert? We went to the Final Fantasy VII concert at the Royal Albert Hall, thank you very much. And it was incredible, and it finished on Sephiroth.
And then all of a sudden the choir comes in and it's like dun 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 dun. Sephiroth! There is just something about One Winged Angel that is so unsettling and just so beautifully orchestrated, right? And this is kind of like where the entire JRPG trope of like the big Latin choir like really started. And when you're facing off against Sephiroth, it really feels like, oh my God, I'm going up against this godly being that I don't know if I have a chance against.
Sephiroth!
I think my favorite track in all of Final Fantasy VII, it's not the obvious one where everyone's going to say, you know, Sephiroth's theme, but it's kind of the preamble before it. Banana. Do, 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 do. It's like the boogeyman's coming to get you.
My favorite piece of music from Final Fantasy VII is Judgment Day. It's not doom and gloom like you'd expect when you're going into the final dungeon. You're going deeper and deeper into the crater. And I really like that Uematsu incorporated small parts of Aerith's theme.
There was such a unique tone to Final Fantasy VII that was largely established by the music.
The Shinra theme. It's this sinister corporate music. Like it feels like this corporation just taking over everything. It sounds like the planet dying, you know, and it's really beautiful.
Barret's theme. Dun 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 dun.
Underneath the rotting pizza, I think it was, and it's that bass line. Bum 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 bum. Dun 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 dun.
The fanfare every time you get a win. No, I'm not a musical person. I'm not even gonna try it. It's gonna be so bad. They played it at the Olympics. I was like, oh my God, that's the Final Fantasy victory music. And I lost my mind.
Tifa's theme, just because it's just so pretty. And then there's a little break.
My favorite character when push comes to shove has to be Tifa Lockhart. I identified with her a lot as a kid, and I had hoped to, you know, grow up and kick as much butt as she does. Plus, she has long dark hair. I've always had long dark hair. It just made sense.
She's just as powerful for the most part as Cloud, who wields a giant sword, and she's just using her fists.
I think it also started my love affair with girls who could kick the shit out of me, and Tifa definitely falls into that category.
She's amazing. She literally, like, you know, uses her fists to f people up. You know, she's running the bar. She's so intelligent. She's got the whole unrequited love thing going on.
Respect Tifa Lockhart because she is queen.
It's actually such a strong cast of characters that I find it hard to pick one.
Oh, my favorite character. It's got to be Sid. It's got to be Sid. I love Sid. I just love him. That big old grin of his. He's got the airship. I always go for the characters that are effortlessly cool. Cloud is a try-hard cool, which is fine. But like Sid is not trying to be cool. He's just cool.
Everyone always says that Cloud is a punk ass. They always say that Cloud is an emo kid. They always say that he's the worst character in the game. He's a blank slate. No one knows what he's doing. But all you got to do is recognize that Zack Fair is actually the true version of Cloud. Zack Fair, for those of you who don't know, is the character that essentially Cloud, spoiler alert, lies and pretends to be.
If you know what happens to him in the game, he's not just an emo dude that a lot of people remember him from, like Advent Children.
I loved his character arc throughout this game.
Towards the end of the game, when Tifa helps him to kind of recomplete his mind and bring it all back together, you see how much that Cloud had grown as a person.
But that acceptance eventually of who and what he really is, that he never made it into Soldier, that he's not the tough guy. That reveal that happens through that whole sequence, that whole life stream sequence between Tifa and Cloud is just really great.
To the eventual helmet pull off and all this stuff, like, what is going on? Wait, he was that guy? Like, I'll never forget that moment specifically. It's probably my favorite in the whole game.
That moment of sort of vindication for that character, where it was right under your nose. The breadcrumbs had been there the whole time. It really felt like a magician's trick or something like that. It was so masterfully crafted.
He's portrayed as this person who's really sad and kind of emotional in a negative sense. By the end of the game, he's actually quite optimistic as a person.
Mr. JRPG himself, I'd argue there has never been a better main protagonist for a JRPG, much less like a video game.
That picture of Cloud, just the Buster sword over his back, pops in my head every time.
I feel like that's maybe the most iconic weapon.
That sword has gotta be 6 feet long by like...
You've got this little skinny guy with this... It's just stupid, like how big that sword is.
I just loved seeing it wielded by a dude with arms the size of a toothpick. One of my lifelong dreams is I'll buy like a good replica Buster sword at some point.
I love prop replicas, and I need to get the prop replica of that sword. I need to, because it'd be amazing.
Somewhere back here, I actually have the sword right here because I wanted it so bad as a kid, and now I really do have it in real life.
Honestly, it's one of the most iconic video game weapons of all time.
The legacy of Final Fantasy VII, it's kind of hard to quantify.
I mean, Jesus, it's the legacy of Final Fantasy VII is it changed everything.
It really opened a lot of people's eyes to a whole genre of games that were completely we were completely unaware of before.
It wasn't until Final Fantasy VII that all of a sudden Western producers and developers were like, wait, this can sell in the West. And all of a sudden, we started getting all these amazing JRPGs.
Final Fantasy VII made JRPGs mainstream.
I felt like when FF7 came out, it took over the world.
A JRPG being the second highest selling game on the PlayStation, like that's insane.
Taking video games seriously, taking video game music seriously, and taking the themes of what video games can teach us seriously.
It's not action scenes, it's not explosions, it's emotion.
I think it's easy to forget how important of a game it is because everyone is constantly saying that it's an important game. It becomes white noise. Yes, of course it's important. Everyone keeps saying it's important. But it is truly, truly like a landmark moment in video game history. It allowed developers and creators and kids who are playing it with kind of a creative bone in their body to dream massively.
I just think of it and I get so happy it exists and so thankful to the people who made it because it has just brought me such tremendous joy. And I am only one person. So many people still feel that way.
Everyone having similar experiences to that, so many other people that describe a similar thing to me, like even like Robert Pattinson, is really heartwarming to know that, oh, it wasn't just me.
Final Fantasy VII has had an immeasurable impact on me.
When I played Final Fantasy VII and like fell in love with those characters, that cast, and went on the journey with them, I knew that was one of those moments where, like I said previously, like I understood the impact that games could have on people because I could feel it happening to me.
Honestly, I think more so than anything else in my life, JRPG protagonists have been the ones who influenced who I am as a person. Those were the ones I always seemed to latch onto and want to be like. That whole persona was kind of who I wanted to be.
I'm pretty sure Final Fantasy VII was my personality for a while. It was very much a safe haven for me.
I think that like my taste in media in general was deeply influenced by me first playing Final Fantasy VII.
Final Fantasy VII taught me how to invest in characters at the very young age.
Now I've come to so love kind of those stories a la Kingdom Hearts, a la Final Fantasy, where they just seem so convoluted and complex, but the stakes are so high.
It was the first time I really thought about a lot of these things because I was a 12-year-old kid at the time. So thinking about climate change and things like that, which are a result directly of our consumerism, thinking about, you know, corporate greed. I didn't think about those things at all before playing Final Fantasy VII.
I hope that the people that worked on that game, you know, when it comes time for them, I hope that they know that they, in their lifetime, they made something profound that changed the world.
I don't want to sound morbid here, but I know I'm going to beat Final Fantasy VII a bunch of times between now and when I die, and that thought makes me really happy.
So in the battle between Aerith or Aerith, I think I got to go Aerith.
To me, it's always been Aerith.
Sometimes I like to be called Trisha, and sometimes I like to be called Trish. Either is fine, whichever you choose.